for the past few years, purely for my children got ill. So I've had to take a few years off from writing. I did publish a few years ago with Penguin. So yeah, that's who I am. And I'm just, it's so lovely to have a facility to like this, just to get the juices flowing again. And I really enjoyed the first session. So I don't know what to expect today, but at this point, I'll take anything that gets me going again and gets me feeling like I'm a part of my industry again. So thank you for this.
While people are joining, quick question. Every time they join, we'll just ask them who they are. I didn't even think about
that would be great, because I really feel like, just like when we were listening to Melanie, it was just nice discovering somebody new. Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be great to actually engage with the rest of everybody's joining the session. It would be nice.
So now that we're talking, Pedzizai, can you tell us about yourself, or put your picture up so we know what you look like?
I'm actually joining you from Dublin, Ireland.
Wow!
And I'm afraid I can't put up my picture. I'm actually in bed right now. It's 7 in the morning. So
I was thinking to myself, my God, you got up early.
Yeah. So I'll just join you. I'm originally from Zimbabwe. I'm an academic. I've just moved to the University College of Dublin, and that's where I teach drama and performance.
Wow. Fabulous. I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you.
Sorry to disturb, Barbara. So this is so nice. So is it possible for people to put out, like, to write stuff in the comments? Like, for example, Melanie, when she was speaking, she said she published, and I was wondering what book, so if possible, is it possible to put it in the chat and stuff? And even with Pedzizai, I'm so sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciation, but maybe if you've got some research papers we can look up, because you're from academia and stuff, to be able to put it in the chat, just in case people want to connect with you, because clearly we've got people of high esteem with which you can learn from going off the session even.
Hi, Janine. How are you? Can you just talk a bit about yourself, and let's hopefully we can also look at you.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, good morning, everyone.
Yay.
Okay, so I'm Janine, and I work at CLEAR, a center at Wits University. We're based on the business campus. We work in research and evaluations. I do write. I am a closet writer. It's nothing published yet, but I've become a little bit braver. I've released some short stories, and so yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Fabulous. Nice to meet you.
Thanks so much, Janine.
Thanks.
Okay, wow, I can look at the chat coming up. Morning, Lebohang.
Good.
Good morning. Nice to know that you're here. Can you also tell us a little bit about yourself?
Good morning.
Hi.
I'm running late. I'm outside trying to get to sit down. I'm in Bloemfontein, and I enjoy reading and writing quite a bit, but not actually what I do for a living.
Fabulous. In Bloemfontein. Wow. Okay.
Yes.
And now we've also got Mvunga. Hi, Mvunga. And Moses. Hi, Moses. I think we'll wait a little bit, and maybe we won't go through everyone who joins, Nelly, because we might then run out of time. So we'll start in a second or two. Hi. Oh, Mvunga. Hi. Yes, we met before. Okay.
Hi, I'm one of the tech supports with Bash.
Yes, yes. No, we
Oh,
met
okay,
before. I
awesome.
suddenly realized. Yeah, when I recognized your face, I thought, oh goodness, okay. And Moses, how are you, Moses? Oh, well, let's quickly jump to Michelle then. Hi, Michelle. Can you say a little bit about yourself? Quick.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle. A little bit about myself. I like writing. I've edited a book called Those Who Travel Meet Themselves, and I'm based in Ulundi in KZN.
Wow, okay. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
We can start.
Oh, there we go.
It's
We've
7
got
minutes
Kik.
past time.
Okay, we'll start in about 3 minutes. Hi, Kikeletso, you're back with your coffee. Back with your coffee. Oh,
yeah, I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Good, good, good. Just a little bit, Kikeletso, about who you are.
Well, so my name is Kekeleto Masudubele. I am in the Northwest Province of South Africa. I practice as a medical doctor and I have a love for reading. And, I have an interest in writing, though I think I write a lot in my mind than I do produce anything. But yeah, that's the long and short of it.
So Kekeleto reminds me of Dr. Kopano Matra Mabaso because she's a medical doctor and she writes as well. So it's such a nice combo when we have doctors doing writing. Thank you for that.
Fabulous, yeah. So I think now it's 9:08. Maybe we kick off. I've put a note in the chat saying, say a little, notice that about is spelled wrong, saying a little bit about yourself in the chat when we kick, once we've kicked off, so that we don't waste too much time and yet we all can read who people are. Hi, Minenetla, and hi, Prelini. So okay, we're gonna kick off, Nelly.
Sure.
I'm gonna talk. Nelly and I are going to talk just a little bit for like 20 minutes or so about the idea of this topic. And I looked at it again this morning, and the topic for me said writing people in place. And then as I was sipping my coffee, I thought, wow, okay, writing people in place. Actually, what is this book that we're talking about all about? And this is the book, which was written by myself, but with a lot of help and assistance from Nelly. And I thought to myself, writing people in place. Most of the time, for me, people think about when they write about people or when they write about places, they think about it in terms of empiricism. What can be proved, what is known, those kinds of things. But what we thought what I thought when I was writing the book and when I hung out with Nelly in Springs was that actually writing people in places are not empirical. People and places are creative. And people and places should be thought of creatively. And so really, this is what this book is all about. It's an accumulation of stories about the people who live in Springs, about the buildings in Springs, the Art Deco buildings, about the spaces in Springs. But yet they're not empirical. They're not, the building measures 5 meters by 2 meters. They're not, she looked beautiful because she was wearing a red and yellow sari. They're not that. They're creative stories about people and the spaces that the people are occupying. So a little bit of background. The first time I went to Springs was with a friend who said there are many, many beautiful Art Deco buildings in Springs, beautiful ones. So I went there and I thought, wow, there are so many of these stunning buildings. It's just glorious. And I already had a book in my head. So then I went back to the Wits Writing Center where I do some work and asked people whether they wanted to accompany me and help me and work with me to put this book together. And I asked two students, well, Shreddy and Nelly were the students that agreed to accompany me to the town. So we went to Springs on, I don't even know, Nelly, how many occasions, but a good amount. And we just walked the streets. We took out our phones. We took photographs. We spoke to people. We looked at the trash. We ate in the eateries. We fell in love with the drug dealers who were hanging out there. We bought fake designer goods. We just hung out and we had a good time. And I think to myself, we were at three incongruous people, one Asian man, one Black woman, me, I call myself old white woman. And people looked at us and they thought, wow, these people are not threatening. And they also hung out, chatted away, and we had just a brilliant and fabulous and good time. And Nelly, your perceptions?
Honestly, why I decided to join the project was because I knew I'd learned a lot about literature. Shreddy was also one of the people who joined us to assist as like a research person as well. So Shreddy, I think he's teaching at Northwestern University now. I think he's teaching literature. So his background as well, yeah, his background is literature. He's a literature academic. So I knew if I tagged along with both Barbara and Shreddy, I'd inevitably learn a lot about literature. I mean, I consider myself a half literature person in the sense that geography is also my other discipline. And obviously I did literature as well. So I'm just interested in world literature as a product, or just as a space. So I don't know, I really tagged along mostly because I'm interested in cultural geography as well. And ethnographic fiction and cultural geography, I think they're very synonymous essentially, because if you visit a place, most of the time when you visit, I don't know, the coast or even another city in a different part of the world, people normally are quite concerned about the physical geography of a place. You describing the city, the buildings, all of that, and the features that make it special. So that's the physical geography aspect. But then a lot of the time, what gives you a better picture of everything is also seeing and understanding the cultural geography of a place. So the people who live there, not just their culture as in customary culture, but also the subcultures that exist, if they're hippies, So I really felt, just from a cultural geography perspective, the way that fiction links with cultural geography is actually ethnographic fiction. That's the product of it. Yeah.
Fabulous. Thanks a million. Thanks, Nelly. Exactly. And it's exactly what Nelly says. We created stories from the cultural context in which we were. So a perfect example is, there's one story in the book about a building that it's called Doreen Court, that's been hijacked. And we first of all asked someone, can we go into the building? They said, no, you've got to wait for Dennis. Then we asked somebody else, a Christian ministry, said, no, come inside here. I'll tell you about the Lord, but wait for Dennis. And then we asked a Somalian trader outside. He said, no, wait for Dennis. Anyway, after 2 or 3 times of going back, Dennis arrived. Dennis was gorgeous. Dennis was like 3 meters tall. I don't even know how tall he was. I had to stare at the sun, putting my face, because Dennis was muscled and he had gold chains and whatever. And I think all three of us, I don't know, I speak for myself maybe, we all thought, wow, this is just somebody so gorgeous, and we all fell in love and we chatted away. And he chatted to us as if we were three ordinary, interesting people. He was quite patronizing, but I loved that about him. And he told us we couldn't go into the building, and he told us a little bit about him. He used to be a bouncer, and we all thought, wow. So, and then from that, a story was created. Or another perfect example was, there's a beautiful hotel in Springs, the Springs Hotel. It's now painted orange. And I said, okay, we've got to go in. It's stunning. We took pictures outside. We went inside. We said to the guy at the reception desk, can we go into the bar? He said, no problem. Looked at us a bit strangely, three of us. We go into the bar, and there are maybe 30, 40 gorgeous looking women, short skirts, bright red lipstick, blue on their eyes, hair, gorgeous clothes. And we're kind of looking around, and we're looking at the beautiful Art Deco decorations of the bar. And we're looking around, we're thinking, oh, is this a little bit voyeuristic? And then Shreddy comes up to me and he says, I think this is a brothel. And I said, I think it is. I'm not quite sure that we should have our lunch here, which is what we thought. And so from that, the story evolved. I think someone even sidled up to Shreddy and said, hey, dude, you want something more? And so it was like, wow, this is amazing. What a lot of fun. So the stories were created through those kind of encounters and experiences. I'm sure you have different ones, Nelly, to talk about.
Yes, so I know, obviously, in writing the book, Barbara, you're passionate and very much about architecture, Art Deco architecture. So you'll see, if people buy the book, there are like a whole lot of pictures throughout the book, because that's what ethnographic fiction is about. I've come to know. It's literally participant observation, but also taking in research through pictures, talking to people, that type of thing. But also, as you say, Barbara, the stories that people tell you, because there's one story that I really remember. We went into the Springs fire station because it was also an example of an Art Deco building. And that's partly what the book is about. It actually educates you a lot about architecture, specifically Art Deco architecture. But we went into the Springs fire station, very beautiful building, lovely. But I think the thing that stuck with me now, it's a good 2 years later, but the story that never leaves me is when we met a fireman. I forget what his name is, but so we just asked him about his experience. Do you like being a fireman, just his job and all of that? And he was like, no, I'm very passionate about this job. I've been doing it for a couple of years. But then he's like, I experienced a lot of trauma though. And I'm starting to have a lot of memory loss. And even my wife is starting to complain because she literally sent me to the shop and tell me, you get this. And I come back, I haven't gotten some of the stuff and all of that. And I'm very forgetful. And he's like, I think the reason is because my brain is just trying to deal with the trauma. In order for me to keep being a fireman, I have to forget some of the things I see. I mean, sometimes so I know he talked about seeing a child who drowned face down in a pool. And he's like, those sort of images never leave me. So in order for me to keep coping and to keep doing this job, I have to rely on forgetting, or else I won't be able to do this. So I don't know. A lot of people told us different stories about their lives and whatever. And the story of the fireman, a fireman is actually reflected in the book. So yeah, there are many anecdotes that Barbara took and she was able to reflect in the book. So you really get a true understanding and a feel for the people we met at Springs.
Fabulous, fabulous, absolutely. So let's just quickly talk. What is this book? What is this book? Okay, and so when I put it together, I thought, wow, we took a lot of pictures, Nelly, Shreddy, and I. Just happy snaps. We snapped away at pictures of people, pictures of kids, pictures of the buildings. As Nelly said, it's all about the buildings and the people in them and the people who share that space. So there's a lot of pictures in the books. Pictures of the firemen, actually, a picture of Nelly, pictures of the buildings. But then there are also a series of stories about people who live in the town. And as I said, they are fictional stories. They're ethnographic fiction. We spoke to them, some of them for an hour, some of them for 5 minutes, some of them we encountered over and over again. And we didn't get, who are you? How old are you? Where were you born? What's your mum's name? We didn't get anything like that. We just spoke more generally, and then I created the stories. But then in the book, there's also a series of conversations between two people who are reflecting on what they think about Springs, reflecting on their ideas of Springs, a dead town, not a dead town, people who are living in a grave, that kind of thing. And there are also various letters between somebody who's writing from South Africa to somebody outside, also their reflections. So these are all fictional and creative. And so for me, when I considered this book and when I thought about ethnographic fiction, I considered many, many things. And certainly the fact that buildings are repositories of stories, and buildings tell stories, so the buildings are woven into the people, and clearly also the people and what they said and their stories. So that's really, yeah, that's how I crafted or how I thought about the ethnographic fiction. I know, Nelly, you've said a fair amount about the ethnographic fiction. You want to add anything there?
I just think, you know, honestly, one thing that I learned from being around people who write fiction, and now, Barbara, it's been years knowing you as a fiction author. I mean, historically, I've come from a nonfiction type of bent, but the one thing that I learned about the power of fiction, and even ethnographic fiction, is something that you once said. You said fiction disarms people. You know, there are quite a lot of social issues in Springs because it's a city full of a lot of migrants, people from different parts of Africa. So that's what we noticed a lot of the time. So sometimes there's issues of Afrophobia, so a lot of race, identity politics, urban blight, you know, the normal sort of non-fiction issues you'd write about if you're writing non-fiction. But then that would turn people off if people knew that you wanted to discuss these issues or whatever. But somehow, because of fiction, you're telling a story. It's an emotional one, an entertaining story that disarms people and gets to educate them about the real issues of Springs. So I really appreciate the power of ethnographic fiction to be able to convey the real lived realities and problems of the people you're writing about.
Fabulous. Okay, so Jane, just one thing before we move on to our exercises. I mean, I always think to myself, what in many senses was my intention when I wrote the book? And I thought a lot about it because we walked in Springs and it's mired, as Nelly said, in poverty, in xenophobia, whatever. But what my intention was that I thought that in the period since apartheid and democracy was introduced into South Africa, many people, and this is particularly white people are complaining that our heritage is being destroyed. And if you look at the buildings in Springs, you look at them and you think, well, this is number one, a European heritage, but number two, are they being destroyed or are they just being changed? They certainly don't look like what they looked like 30 years ago or in the 60s, or however long ago. But are they being destroyed or are they being changed? And so in the book, what I tried to do is develop a new narrative. One, a narrative in which it contains the stories of people who lived there previously. And as Nelly said, it's an immigrant town. So the previous dwellers were also immigrants. They happened to be from Eastern Europe, Portugal, Greece, wherever, okay? And they've since moved out, and now there are new immigrants there from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, from the Congo, from Nigeria, from wherever. It's a new narrative which contains these stories of immigrants, which are in fact exciting stories. So what I've tried to do in the book is develop a picture of how space is social and how people develop and create a beauty, which is not necessarily their heritage, but they've made it beautiful in a different kind of way. And also, obviously, then in the midst of poverty and blight and sometimes despair, they're people and they're children and they're living and they're having a good time and they're chattering away and they're playing on the streets and whatever. So it's a book, I feel, of exuberance, not despair. Nelly, and then we can move to our... Anything? Oh, you are silent.
Oh, apologies for that. I just wanted to say, I think if people wanted to look at more examples of ethnographic fiction, some novels as well, the examples that were brought up were Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss, The Night Tiger, The Topeka School by Ben Lerner. I think something by Johnny Steinberg. Yeah, the book is called A Man of Good Hope. Braided Worlds by the Sea. So there is quite a lot of ethnographic fiction novels that have already been published and stuff. I don't know why it's not explicitly written, if you go to exclusive books or whatever, that's this, like historical novels actually, that this section is for historical novels or this is for ethnographic fiction or whatever. But I suppose the more you learn about literature, the more you'll be able to pick up and see if this novel is ethnographic fiction. But I think it parallels historical fiction very well in a sense. Yeah, in the sense that even in historical fiction, you have to do research, even if it's a fictional story, it's very research-based. So ethnographic fiction is strongly research-based as well, even if it's a fictional story. And yeah, as I say, historical fiction and ethnographic fiction, I feel like that is the feature. Yes.
Wow, thank you. So now let's move, because this is an hour session. So why don't we do an exercise now? What I'm thinking, and what Nelly and I talked about as an appropriate exercise was all of us, I think there are 12 people or 11 or whatever, I don't know, just sit for 10 minutes in this room. Don't even worry about moving out of it, or we're not breaking away. In this room, sit for just 10 minutes, okay? And write about a person that you know. It could be an acquaintance. It could be someone that you bump into often as you walk down the road to the shops, just someone. You don't even know them, you just greet them. It could be the person that owns the shop in your neighborhood. It could be the cashier who works at Pick and Pay. Anybody, okay. But somebody who you don't know, but you've encountered and you've swapped greetings, you've swapped stories or not, okay. And then write a story about this person, not what you know, they're 7 feet tall, but ideas that you create in order to paint a picture of them. Paint a picture of somebody, yeah. So let's sit, it's now 9:30 on my computer. Should we sit for 10 minutes or so? Unless people then raise their hands and say, we're done. How about that?
I think that's good enough.
Perfect.
It would be nice if people also, maybe 1 or 2 people read us something.
Yes, and then after the 10 minutes, we'll get people to read, depending upon the amount of time, hopefully all. But let's do 10 minutes right away, maybe 7 minutes, and then we'll read our stories. And yeah, perfect. Okay, so right away. I'll time it, Nelly.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, maybe Nelly, if, I noticed that if you can write those examples of the novels, that would be great. So we've got them.
Okay, I'll just respond on the chat in a moment.
Okay, I'm thinking we should start wrapping up now. Just take a minute or two to wrap up your stories, and then people can read to the group. Just start wrapping it up now. Okay, should we kick off? I'm thinking to myself, let people, I'd like people to read their stories, and we don't really comment. We can comment, but not extensively, so that everyone gets a chance to read their story. And then at the end, if there's time, people can say things. But I'd really like to hear everybody's stories. So yeah, so should we kick off? Can we kick off from the bottom? I'm looking at my screen. Can I kick off from the bottom with Amo, Amo? And are you there, Amo?
Morning.
Morning.
Morning. Am I audible?
Yep.
Morning, Barbara. Morning, Nelisiwe. Morning, everyone in the group today. Okay. I wasn't quite complete with my story, but I will just read what I have so far.
Perfect.
Okay. It's okay. I'll just start reading it without giving it any context. All right.
Yeah, don't give us a context. Yeah, don't even.
Yes, yes. Okay. There's a woman who sells fruit, sweets, and other odd snacks along Liliengoy in Pretoria. I pass by her stall every morning to buy fruit and later in the afternoon to bid her good evening. Every morning, I find her there with her stall neatly set up, as though she never leaves. But she does. She has 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, all at Hamilton Primary School, just further up Liliengoy. She wakes up each morning to prepare them for school, makes dinner for later, and then off she comes. That's as far as I could go.
Fabulous. No, fabulous.
Thank you.
Fabulous.
Wait, Barbara, can I please interject?
Yeah, sure.
So I didn't realize Amu was actually part of the workshop. So so I just saw her name out of recognition, and of course the voice. So I don't think Amu has written in the chat, but she's actually one of the people from the Gauteng Department of Education book club. So
wow, okay.
Yes. So, and also she's one of the facilitators for virtual reading club run by National Education Collaboration Trust. So she's in education, and she's doing big things by getting education specialists in the department to be able to do bookish things, reading clubs and all of that. So we're very honored to have somebody of your caliber. Thank you, Amu.
Wow, thank you, Amo. Well, I also loved your story. So let's move on to, I'm just going to go from right to left, which I suppose we should be going politically anyway. Minnehle Siko, if that is pronounced correctly.
Yeah, it's Minenhle Sikhosana.
Oh, sorry. I just got the SIK. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Morning, everyone. Morning, Barbara. Morning, Nelisiwe. I don't believe myself to be a writer, so I tried. But this was a fun exercise, actually. I'm very excited.
Oh, fabulous.
So Malume strolls, or rather roams around our Lokshin streets. Under street lamps late into the evening, he looks skinny, frail, and long. 5 rand is all he'll ask for. For food, for a cigarette, for toilet paper, for painkillers, I don't know. But he'll make sure to ask and nod acceptingly if you say, Malume, today I don't have any money. I believe him to be impohlo. No family, no wife, no kids. But he has been graced with so much life. So surely he must have been, or rather is a good human being. He'll walk long distances within our area with no definite destination. If you're lucky that day, you'll either bump into him on the street or find his fragile body taking a break on the side of your driveway. A pleasant, harmless visitor. At some point, I thought of him to be quite suspicious. I was sure that he was being used as a mule across the sections in our location, because who would suspect an old, beaten down, fragile, 5 to dying looking man to have drugs on his body for any reason? That's as far as I could go.
Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Thank you so much, Minlehle. Should we talk to Pralina now? Pralina, can you read yours? Are you there? Okay, let's jump to Ivuku. And we can come back to Pralina if you're getting yourself coffee or whatever.
Hi, guys. I am here.
Oh, you are here. Oh, okay.
I just couldn't find my unmute button.
Oh, okay. You're
technologically
impaired like I am. Yeah.
Sorry, does the other person, who was it, want to go first? I can go after. It's not a problem.
Not a problem. You go, Pralina.
Okay. All right. It's a bit all over the place. He was round and red. I think ruddy might describe him best. His cubicle was only slightly bigger than he was, and it was tucked at the far end of the pharmacy. He wasn't a slight, short iridologist of Asian descent, but a very large Afrikaans man, perched on a little bench in the dark, load shedding. Dr. Marais came from a small town in the Northwest province where the earth matched his hair color. I imagine that he must have spent his childhood calfoot, kicking up dust and climbing trees. That's as far as I got.
It's fabulous, fabulous. Thank you so much, Pralina. Thank you. Can we move on to Vuku?
Hi, guys.
Hi.
My name is Ivuku. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be disappointing you guys, but I couldn't write anything.
You're not going to disappoint at all.
I couldn't think of a particular story that I could reference in this regard, so I don't know.
No problem. Just join in the chat when we talk about the stories. No problem at all. So maybe let's move to you, Moses.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm sorry, I'm in the same position as the previous respondent, and which is embarrassing because I live in, I now live in a place called Jinja. Jinja is right at the source of the Nile.
Wow.
The confluence of Lake Victoria and the River Nile, so to speak. And it's a very enchanting city. You know, it has a bit of the derelict and all this stuff, these new buildings that are coming up. So what's the name? Nelisiwe was speaking about architecture and Art Deco, and I really tried. I wanted to to get into a zone where I could speak about so many things about Jinja. It's also a cosmopolitan, you know, town. It's now a city with natives, a lot of whites because it has a touristy thing about it in terms of the adventure, bungee jumping, you name it. And then it also has all these Somalis and Indians. Of course, Indians are really very good at trade. So there's so much that can be written from a perspective of ethnographic fiction. But I don't know, I have this procrastination thing. I'll probably contribute in due course.
Well, no, Moses, you're going to
Professor-
write it. When we finish this session, you're going to sit writing. You're going to write like a mad person, because everything will all come into your head then. And then you'll send it to us and we'll be so excited. Brilliant. Okay, I noticed that Pedzisai is also slow brain, so don't worry about it. You can do the same thing as Moses, write like a maniac and send it to us later. So let's go to Lebo. Yes, Lebo. Or have we done Lebo? No, Lebo. Yeah.
Hi, I didn't write what I would like to share with everyone, but I can just share that I wrote about Tabiso. So I gave this man a name. I often meet him at the coffee shop. So he works at the coffee shop, he's a waiter there. And he's so friendly. He will often just stop for a chat. Even when I pass by the coffee shop to another shop, he will stop me and we'll have a short chat. And I imagine him to be quite passionate about soccer, and on weekends or when he's off, he coaches a team of boys called the Mangaung Stars. And on this particular day, he's quite upset because Bloemfontein Celtics has been sold. So the mood in the city is a bit somber. So I was just brainstorming, but had not really written. So that's far as I got.
That's fabulous, because once we're out of this computer session or whatever, you're going to be writing it like a maniac, which will be fabulous. So let's skip Mvunga, because you're a administrator, and go to Melanie, and we'll come back to you if you want to, Mvunga, later if we've got time. Melanie?
I hope my children don't make a noise in the background. Sorry if they do.
No problem.
So mine's very quick. Once a month, she hollers at the gate, back bent and eyes cloudy with age and sorrow. She wants to sell me avos. They are hard and wrinkled, inedible. Njani gogo, I ask, and instantly regret asking it for fear that I know the answer. She is sleeping on the floor of her church, still, 5 months after the floods that swept through KwaZulu-Natal, washing away homes and her hope. That's it.
Oh, great, fabulous, Melanie. Thank you. Thank you. Let's go to Kikeletso.
And good morning, all. Am I audible enough?
Yeah, perfect.
Lovely. Carolina had spoken about a doctor in the Northwest whose, I think, forehead describes the size of the place or something like that. That's quite hilarious. I will say something about a man that I had met. One of my other sins is that I love golf, and then there's this new greenkeeper that we have. And here's the story of my first impressions. I saw him once, this short, stout, brisk walking, bearded man. I'd say well in his 40s. There's something about him, about his build, about his walk, his demeanor. Not entirely sure what. He has a nervous voice, high, which betrayed something of his disposition. It seems to me that whoever came to him, he did not want. It is strange to think that he is incapable of thought, yet his mannerisms tell otherwise. But what kind of reception would he get? I thought to myself. I think that's the story for me.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Kikeletso. That's brilliant. Shall we move on to Janine?
Okay. Yeah, also unfinished, but here it goes. Good morning, Buti. How are you today? Good morning. Good, thanks. And you? He shouted back from behind his desk in the foyer. His smile lingered as he lightly swayed from side to side. Always on time for his shift, at least 2 taxis to get here. Even during December holidays, he's still here, with his smile. Not all his family gets to have his smile and a morning hug goodbye. That's it.
Wow, thank you so much, Janine. Fabulous, fabulous. Amo, we've listened to yours. Yes, you were the first one. Mavungo, you were the administrator, but if you did the exercise and you'd like to read, we're more than happy to hear it. No. Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't doing the exercise, but I definitely am listening in.
Oh, no problem. I just thought I would ask you anyway. I mean, for me, and Nelly, you must come in here. I love these stories. For me, the description of the people that you were writing about, I got a picture of them. I love the way Amo described the fruit seller, or how Lebo talked about the person in the coffee shop. I had a picture of those people in my mind, the fruit seller sitting behind her box, but at the same time thinking all the time, how am I going to pay for school fees because the kid goes to school or the kids go to school up the road. I could feel her thought process in just the small story that was written. And I loved Labels the coffee shop because it's also that insouciant sort of coffee barista. So I'm not mentioning everybody's, but clearly I can, I love the way, Janine, you used first person speech, because that's also an interesting thing in relation to ethnographic, because often writers will say, can I actually put words into somebody else's mouth? And you did, and I think you can, and I think that's fabulous. Keke, on your golf guy or your golf, wow, I mean, I got the picture of him, okay? He was like not your stereotypical golfer, and I think you showed that so very, very fabulously. Pralina and the guy sitting in the corner of the pharmacy, well, it's exactly Keke, so you got that, you got the feeling of smallness, and there's this big person who's linked to the soil, sitting in a box in a pharmacy. I'm not mentioning everybody. Nelly, do you want to talk to what you heard? Oh, we can't hear you.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So I think so firstly, kudos to all the people who were able to write on the spot. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people knew they'd have to specifically do and share their writing and stuff. So really kudos to everybody who actually shared their writing pieces. And I think it will speak to them making sure that they remember some of the things we discussed in the workshop, because they did something physical. And hopefully, we get more writing under the ethnographic fiction, or at least more book events and stuff around the genre. But I think the one thing that I just wanted to say, I don't think we've had a quote from the book, Barbara. So I just wanted to read one of my favorite quotes. So it's on page 131, and it says, "But shame does not need the medium of literacy. Humiliation goes dumbly home. A dog, a child too small to speak, can sense it." And it sank right down through all the arid layers of African life in the city. So I think just that whole aspect where you said, but shame does not need a medium of literacy. I think, that really, really touched me, because honestly, if you're reading a textbook about springs or the area and whatever, I mean, you can absorb the facts, but when a character is able to reflect on a human aspect like shame, it's a little bit more memorable, and it humanizes them. So I think, again, that speaks to the power of ethnographic fiction. It's more than the fiction actually will bring out the emotion that will stay with you, and hopefully actually inspire you to be a little bit more empathetic towards the problems that the people in the area face. And hopefully people can then act and become change agents in their communities. So fiction is a very powerful tool. Thanks, Barbara.
Wow, thank you. And thank you. And I'm noticing now it's 9:58. Does anyone want to raise anything in the last 2 minutes before we unfortunately have to close, because I'm loving this session. I wish it could go on. I wish I could hear more stories. Anyone want to raise anything?
Yes, so Barbara, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to say, guys, Barbara is the most humble academic writer person in the world, but she's got a wonderful website as well. I think it's www.barbaraadair.co.za, so you can go and read she's got travel writing done over there. And yeah, she's also on social media, and she does a whole lot of bookish stuff. So it will be wonderful if people can also consider looking at the website, or at least getting in contact with her directly for further things. Thanks.
Wow, thank you, Nelly. That was so kind of you to say that. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to raise anything?
Quick question, please, Barbara. Just something around tenses. I find sometimes I switch between that. You know, what would you advise or suggest on that in terms of maybe reading? But like, I mean, even though I read different things, there's obviously, you know, people have this particular space, but is there any kind of rule or suggestion, golden rule around stuff like that?
I personally don't think so. I think you can write however you want to write. You can jump between the past and the present. You can jump between the future and the past, because often we'll write futuristically. And I mean, in the book, there's a lot of stuff in the past when people are remembering things, but there's also speculative stuff about, you know, maybes and possibles, and there are no rules. I just think as long as it doesn't work, and if it works, for me, that's the crucial thing. And so all of these stories, albeit that they were done very quickly and off the cuff and right now, they worked because some were in the past, some were the present, but they worked. And that's the rule. Do they work? And I think reading aloud is a very nice thing to do, because then you hear it.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Janie, I noticed, oh, okay, no, but Janie, you haven't been here, you've just joined. So anyone want to raise anything? I notice it's 10:01. Anyone want to raise anything before we end then? Kekaletso, you want to say, oh, okay.
Yeah, look, thank you so much, Barbara. I think this was quite something informative, and a lot really has been gained out of this. I remember I attended a book fair somewhere in 2011, and a certain gentleman from France called Dennis Hassan. Dennis had been in South Africa, and I think he immigrated to France, and I think he wrote about the city of Johannesburg, you know, and how over time the city has changed, you know, and how it affects, you know, the human psyche also in the kind of developmental phase of its own metamorphosis, of its own change of sceneries, of its change of buildings, and I think that you know, the human aspect on how we relate, I suppose, to inanimate, you know, things like buildings is something worth thinking about, of how that narrative of it evolving to a level that, you know, the human, as you say, you write about architecture. I mean, the things that were built a few years ago are not sort of appealing to the eyes as much as, and yet in the change also, you know, the kind of psyche that moves with those kind of changes. is something worth the while on human development as well. And I think that Dennis Hessen's book, one's A City of Johannesburg, I think, and then there was one Dancing in the Dead Lemon Street. But I think those are quite lovely books to think about when you think of buildings and cities and people. You know, I think that's my 2 cents worth.
Thank you so much, Kikeletso. Okay, it's 10:04 now. I think that we should close the meeting. And Bash, as you say, you'll be sending out the video stroke, not sending it out. So I don't know, you'll tell us where to access it if we want to or whatever. So thank you so very, very much. I really, really had a good time. So I hope that everyone else did. Nelly?
No, thanks to everybody who attended the session. And yeah, it was just great to just see the selection of different bookish people that actually exist. Just appreciate that. Many thanks.
Thank you very, very much. Okay. Cheers.
Bye.
Enjoy. Have a good time.